My family met a ghost and interacted with it for years. I grew up in a very old house in the Midwest that my parents got for a steal. It was originally built as a hotel, and the seller was very motivated to get rid of it. Growing up, weird little things happened all the time. The typical malarkey that is easy to ignore for years and years. Footsteps, strange shadows. The feeling of being watched or followed. Swearing you see someone in the room right as you wake up. The room in the basement that chills your blood every time for no reason. The occasional hard-to-explain moments. I moved to the West Coast in my 20s for school and self-discovery. During a visit from my family, my sister told me that they had met a ghost in the house. I was pretty skeptical, but my entire family backed her up. She was in her room, and her radio had been acting up. So just on the off chance, she said, "Okay, if you are a ghost, could you just please stop it?" The radio turned off. She waited a moment and then said, "Wait, if you are a ghost, turn it on." And the radio turned on. After some experimentation, they devised a system of communication. Volume up was yes, volume down was no. The digital readout on the volume was 0 to 30, so 1 was A, 2 was B, 3 was C, and so on. If the radio turned off, then it was a sort of hard no or off-limits question. Through this system, the ghost had explained that he wanted to be called Jason. He had died in the house in 1905 at age 5 when he was sick, and he lived in the house alongside us with his kind mother and evil father. When they asked if he loved his father, the volume went to 0 and turned off. In fact, he refused most questions about his father. Apparently, he was the cause of the more malevolent experiences that people had in that house. I was definitely intrigued and went back home that year to visit for a chance to experience this for myself. However, when I arrived, Jason refused to interact with me. I would leave the table and the radio would pop on. My sisters would call me back and the radio would turn off instantly. He didn't want to have anything to do with me. As I thought about this, I remembered an experience I had before moving to the West Coast. I had been lying in bed one night when I felt a hand ruffle my hair playfully. I freaked out. I shot out of bed, turned on the light, puffed out my chest, and overconfidently yelled, "You don't know who I am or what I'm capable of. If you try that again, you'll regret it. Don't you dare mess with me." And then several picture frames on my desk flew off onto my floor belligerently. I stayed at a friend's house that night. One night on my trip after Jason refused to talk to me, I spoke out loud, "Hey, I'm sorry if it was you who I yelled at that one night. I bet you were trying to play or introduce yourself to me, and I got scared. I didn't need to be so mean to you, and I understand if you don't want to talk to me." The radio turned on. "Hey, are you the Jason I have heard so much about?" The volume went up. "Did I tell it you that night before I left?" The volume went up again and then went back down to a reasonable level. "I'm sorry about that. Can we be friends?" The volume went up again. It was incredible. He had introduced himself to several family friends as well. To prove he wasn't some sort of hacked radio, he would do additional tasks. He would ring our doorbell. He would push crayons around on the table. He even did a really incredible trick for us. You see, while asking about the logistics of being a ghost, he had volume upped that he could travel anywhere almost instantly. To test it, we called up a family friend on the West Coast. This friend put out a newspaper on their kitchen table. Jason then visited them and came back to set the volume to the date of the paper. The radio turned off for a moment, then seconds later, it set the volume to 17. The friend said, "So close." The paper was for the 18th, but Jason was not convinced. Volume up, volume down, 17, volume up, Volume down. 17, 17, 17, 17. The friend checked again and apologized. Oh, he's right. I misremembered. Here's the paper from the 17th. He refused to answer any questions about God or religion. He gave us a few answers that contradicted as well. He told us he didn't need to sleep, but he had told my sister a few months earlier that he did. One thing he seemed to know was how long he would be there. Through the Volumoigia system, he told my sister he would be around until her 28th birthday. Then his family would move on to the next phase. At the time, this was a couple years into the future. Sure enough, we never heard from him after that. During his time with us, he would occasionally visit our dreams. We would have these extremely realistic dreams where a boy in a white hooded robe would say hi to us, ask to play hide and seek with us, or ask us questions about ourselves. Then he would confirm with my sister that he had visited us. He used the radio primarily, but in the final year, he got better at manipulating other electronics. He could make printers print messages. He could manipulate televisions. He even sent us texts in the last few months. My mother had texted me, "I see ooh ha ha," when I was back in the West Coast a couple years after all of this. I texted her back, "Did you come out here to visit? Where are you?" But she was confused. She said she was in the Midwest at home, and her phone had no evidence of sending a text with that message to me. I texted back, "I think Jason sent me a message." "Hi, Jason." And I got a reply, "Hi" again. Not from my mom. My sister even once got a call with a picture of Obama and the caller ID saying Mr. President. But there was nobody there when she answered, and apparently no callback number. The radio confirmed with the volume up that Jason was goofing around. It was a wild few years with that crazy kid haunting our devices. My family still has that radio out just in case, but it hasn't turned on in years. My sister is now well into her 30s. I know this will be met with a lot of skepticism. Even I was very skeptical until I was able to meet him myself. We also tried recording Jason's presence. Electronic recording was interfered with or glitch every single time. Jason didn't want to be recorded. Camcorders glitched. Phone video didn't save or seemed to be immediately deleted. Even audio recordings didn't work around the radio when he was active. My roommate hasn't left his room in 6 days, and I think I know why. I need to get this down while I still can, while I still remember things correctly. Tom and I have been roommates for 2 years. We're not best friends or anything, but we get along. He pays rent on time, cleans up after himself, doesn't blast music at 3 a.m. Normal roommate stuff. We work different schedules, so we mostly just see each other in passing. Quick nod in the kitchen, maybe share a beer on weekends. 6 days ago, Tom came home from work looking exhausted. More than exhausted. Hollowed out. Like someone had scooped something essential out of him and left the shell. He went straight to his room without saying anything. I figured bad day at work, maybe got dumped. Been there, but he hasn't come out since. At first I wasn't worried. Depression hits hard sometimes. I left food outside his door the first 2 days. Sandwiches, soup, water bottles. The food disappeared, so I knew he was alive. I could hear him moving around in there. Footsteps, his desk chair creaking, occasional typing on his keyboard. Day 3, the typing got weird. Really weird. Tom has this mechanical keyboard, one of those loud clicky ones that gaming nerds love. I can usually hear it through the wall when he's up late. But the rhythm was wrong. Instead of the usual bursts of typing, it was perfectly steady. Click, 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 click. One key every 2 seconds, like a metronome. For hours I knocked. "Tom, you good in there?" The clicking stopped immediately. Then his voice muffled through the door. "I'm working on something." "What kind of something?" Long pause. Then, "I'm trying to remember how to stop remembering." What theft does that mean, right? But before I could ask, the clicking started again. Click, 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 same exact rhythm. Day 4, I realized the food wasn't being eaten. It was disappearing, yeah, but not being eaten. I know because I put a sandwich out there, and an hour later found it in our kitchen trash, completely untouched except every single component had been separated. Bread in one corner, meat carefully folded in another, cheese peeled apart layer by layer, lettuce leaves individually stacked, like someone had deconstructed it to understand how it worked. That night I heard him on the phone, except when I walked past his door, I could hear both sides of the conversation. Both voices were his. "Do you remember the lake?" his normal voice asked. "We've never been to a lake," his same voice answered, but flatter, like someone doing a bad impression of being human. "We went every summer as kids. Those aren't our memories. Those are the memories we're supposed to have. What's the difference? One set keeps us here. The other set takes us back." I stood frozen outside his door, listening to Tom have this whole conversation with himself, alternating voices like he was reading both parts in a play. Then suddenly, mid-sentence, complete silence. Not the normal kind where someone stops talking. The aggressive kind, like the air itself had been muted. "Tom?" I whispered. "You're listening," both voices said at the same time, creating this awful harmony. "That's good. Keep listening. You'll need to remember this later." I went back to my room and locked the door. Day 5, our bathroom started changing. Nothing dramatic. The tiles just weren't quite where they used to be. I know this sounds insane, but I've lived here 2 years and I know that bathroom. The crack in the 3rd tile from the left has always been there. Except now it was in the 4th tile. And when I looked again an hour later, 5th tile. Like it was migrating. The mirror got worse. You know how sometimes you catch yourself in a mirror and for a split second you don't recognize yourself? That, but constant. Every time I looked, my reflection seemed surprised to see me, like we were strangers passing in a hallway. Tom's typing had evolved into something more complex. Patterns within patterns. Sometimes I could almost detect words in the rhythm. "My name is Tom, I live here, this is real, this is real, this is real." Then last night, day 6, everything went quiet. No typing, no movement, nothing. I thought maybe he'd finally fallen asleep. At exactly 3:33 a.m., my phone buzzed. Text from Tom, "Come to my room. Bring the notebook from under your bed." I don't have a notebook under my bed. I checked anyway. There was a notebook under my bed. It was filled with my handwriting, pages and pages describing things I've never experienced. Living in other apartments with other roommates named Tom. Always the same story. Tom goes into his room, stays for 6 days, and on the 7th day, the entries just stop. Every single one cuts off mid-sentence on day 7. But here's the thing that made me start writing this post. The last entry, dated yesterday, describes me finding this notebook. It describes me reading these entries. It describes me sitting down at my computer to write this exact post. Word for word what I'm typing right now. And at the bottom of the page, in handwriting that gets progressively more shaky, he's not trying to remember how to stop remembering. He's trying to remember how to make you forget. It's day 7. I just heard Tom's door open for the first time in 6 days. He's standing in the hallway now, just standing there. He looks exactly like Tom, but also exactly like me. Like someone took both our faces and averaged them out. "You found the notebook," he says with my voice using Tom's mouth. I'm still typing this because I don't know what else to do. He's walking toward me now. Slow, careful steps, like he's remembering how legs work. "It's easier if you don't fight it," he says. You'll be Tom next time." "I'll be you. Or maybe we'll both be someone else." The notebook will be under the bed again. Day 1 will start again. He's right behind me now. I can see him in the black reflection of my monitor. Except the reflection is typing too, writing words I haven't written yet. Finishing this post before I've finished writing it. Wait, that's not possible. How can I see what I haven't typed yet? Unless I'm not the one typing anymore. Unless I haven't been typing for the last few minutes. Unless the transition already happened, and I'm just remembering writing this like I remember being Tom's roommate, like Tom remembers being mine, like we both remember living here, even though neither of us has ever lived anywhere, and both of us have always lived here. And "See," Tom says, or I say, or we say, "It's easier when you stop fighting it." The notebook is back under the bed. Tom's door is closed. The typing has started again. Click, 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 click. Day 1. I met a slayer riding back and forth from Texas to Arizona. Was always my route. The trucking agency I was with was always strict about roadways and sticking to scheduled roads. But this one particular night, the road was closed off for miles, which I had to deviate and find my way around. After confirming this with the dispatch, I had the go-ahead and found a road that was less traveled to me, and by the looks of it, by anyone else. It was getting late and I decided to stop by this motel that looked run down. Right across from it was a bar that had a few other trucks just around the corner with some cars. Looked harmless enough, maybe a butt rowdy looking, but I could really use a few beers for the night. After settling in my room, I walked myself across the road and could see down the road with no lights on the sides like you would see, but there was nothing. No lights anywhere for that matter. Like this small area itself was in a night void. A void is the best I could describe it. I walked into the bar and there's an old-style jukebox to the left of the door, and this place was just behind on the times, but looked really well. You just felt uneasy about it for some reason. I sat down and ordered a beer, struck up a convo with another one of the truckers, talked about our long hauls, different companies we've worked for, and another trucker comes in. He joins us, and the next, there was 5 of us sitting at the table having laughs and arguing who's buying the next round. We must have been sitting there from 11 p.m. till 3 a.m. 2 of the truckers passed out in their chairs, while one went back to the motel, and me and this one guy, Randy, I'll call him, sat there still very much sober, and that tells we handle our drinks better than most. So we're talking and very much making ourselves at home and talking the ice. Bartender, who was a pretty cool guy himself. Suddenly, the door kicks in and stumbles in this guy wearing a John Deere hat, a brown-stained and weathered jacket, and just the most tired look on his face. The bartender looks at him and cracks a beer for him without saying a word, and he drinks it in seconds. I smirk, thirsty. all looking over at his direction, and the bartender whispers over at me almost in an angered tone, "No, no, I don't." And the man looks at me with tired bags under his eyes, looking shook up. You could say that he orders a shot of tequila and guns it down, no problem. I look him up and down, a little warm to be dressed up. You all right? He looks at himself and slides his jacket off his shoulders, and it hits the ground with a heavy thud. I look at his back, and I see a row of sticks strapped to his back, hands sharpened, and with crucifixes crudely carved into the sides. The bartender catches my attention and nods his head at me, telling me not to bother the strange man, and me, being the asshole I am, feel the hours of beers finally setting in to push buttons like the typical drunk. I laugh and look at him. Are those steaks? What are you, a vampire hunter or some shit? Chuckling, and he looks at me with one of those sad but unpredictable stares and cracks a smile and drinks from his second beer. My buddy beside me stands up and walks off like he knew something was up. The bartender walks off and goes into the back, and I look over at this guy, and he stands up, picking up his jacket, which is hiding a sawed-off shotgun. My heart skipped a beat at the sight and could see dried blood on his left hand. Oh shit, I whispered to myself as this guy tosses on his weighted jacket, seeing it had chainmail on the inside, and assumed it was in the sleeves as well, and just as quick as he came, he was gone. The bartender comes back out and cracks open a beer and hands it to me, on the house, seeing as it's your first time here. Fast forget what happened. I feel a cold chill in my skin and suddenly felt sober. What the hell was that? I asked. We have a problem around here like you wouldn't believe. That man is just one of many that pass through here every few nights. They usually travel in pairs, but the ones who are alone aren't much of talkers. We call them slayers. I feel my hand slightly twitch at the bartender's word slayers. As in vampire slayers? The bartender nods. Yeah, not just vampires though. I mean, look, we're near the border and weird shit happens. He goes on explaining how supposed vampires cross the border from Mexico and into Texas and make their way north for whatever reason. And there's only a small handful of these so-called slayers stop them. Couldn't believe it myself, but of course it could just be these locals playing a prank or something, and that's the mindset I kept as I left that place, doing my best to put it all behind me. I drove back to the main road and left that less traveled place, feeling some sense of comfort as I made my way back. But as I was driving on the highway, there he was on the side of the road, holding a wooden shard while leaning against his truck. Watched as I drove by and nods his head at me. I know it's all bullshit. Vampires can't be real. But what if? I've seen some weird things in my life as a trucker, and some things can't be explained. But if vampires are real, just how safe are we in this world? What else don't we know? Really makes me wonder.